Welcome to Outsider Watches and this review of the Seiko SSK001 GMT. Quick watch check. This is my Longines Hydro Conquest 300 meter diver, 41mm diameter with the aluminium bezel insert. And I've reviewed that watch on another video on this channel. So back to this Seiko. I'm incredibly impressed with this watch so far. It has the SKX style case, which is just brilliant at wearing smaller than its dimensions would suggest. Those dimensions are, the watch has a diameter of 42.5mm. It has a thickness of 13.6mm. It has a lug-to-lug length of 46mm. And it has a lug width of 22mm. It's incredible how Seiko makes this watch wear smaller. And that's down to the case design and also the lug-to-lug length of just 46mm. And it wears incredibly well on my 6.5-inch wrist. If we look at the Longines, that, as I mentioned, has a 41mm diameter, but its lug-to-lug length is 50mm. Now that means that on my wrist, the lugs actually span my entire wrist and make it look on the large side. If we go back to the Seiko, that actually has a larger diameter. It's 1.5 millimeters wider, but it doesn't look wider, and it wears smaller because of that shorter lug-to-lug distance of 46mm. I'll pop it on. Just have a look at the clasp. It's quite a cheap clasp, but it's very functional. So it's got the safety clasp, it's got a twin push-up release, and inside you can see a very thin stamped clasp. But it's functional, it's comfortable, it does the job, it works very well, and it provides a very low profile to the clasp, which I hadn't really considered before. I tend to appreciate clasps which are really well built, but this thinner clasp, which is admittedly cheaper, does provide us a much smaller profile, a much lower profile on the wrist. So as you can see, it wears very, very well on my 6.5-inch wrist. As you can see, the lugs, they don't span my entire wrist, they're a little bit shorter, and I think that adds to the wearability of the watch. It looks better proportion on my wrist. I think the watch itself is fantastic. It's a really good looking watch. It houses the 4R34 movement, which is an adapted 4R35 with a GMT function added. I think I'm correct in saying that the GMT edition is a result of losing the day complication. Seiko 5s are well known for having a day and a date, but the day has been removed and that's been adapted to form a GMT hand, which I think looks fantastic. Now I have absolutely no need for a GMT. I don't travel very often, I don't do business with people abroad, so the GMT to me is is completely unnecessary, but I love this watch and I just had to buy it when I saw it. I'll probably keep the GMT hand on local time, which I know is a complete waste of a function, but I'm happy to wear this watch as it is, and I think it looks stunning. The watch has a friction fit bezel. I've heard mixed reports about friction fit bezels, but I think it's got a really good action. It's got a firm action. It's not a loose action at all, so I doubt the bezel will move accidentally. Of course, it also allows perfect alignment, and the rehaut in this watch, in this example, is perfectly aligned too. So I'm really happy with the Seiko quality assurance on this example. One thing I've noticed about this watch is the lume. It's incredible lume. I've seen videos before about Seiko lume, and I hadn't really experienced it until now, and it really is wonderful. It's very, very bright, and it's fairly long lasting as well. The bezel itself is an aluminium bezel with a hardlex coating or a hardlex covering, which I think looks stunning. As you can see, it's the daylight hours are silvered and the nighttime hours on the bezel are in black. In certain lighting conditions, the bezel looks completely black, but just tilt it slightly and you can see the silvered daylight hours. I think it looks absolutely stunning. The bracelet is extremely comfortable. It's a Jubilee style bracelet. The clasp has 4 micro adjusts which allow perfect fit. As you can see, the end links drop straight down. That allows the watch to wear nice and small. Solid links in this Jubilee bracelet. Extremely comfortable wearing experience. There have been mentions about the Cyclops on this watch. I've got no issues with the Cyclops at all. I think it makes readability very good. The crown on this watch is unsigned. It sits at about the 4 o'clock position. It's a little bit difficult to wind because of those prominent crown guards. Still manageable though. The only slight issue I have possibly is that to lift the crown up, it's quite difficult. You do need a nail underneath that crown to lift it in order to adjust the time settings, but only a slight niggle. Having a non-screw down crown reduces the water resistance on this watch to 100 meters. Going back to the movement on this watch, it's an automatic movement with hacking and hand winding. It has a 41-hour power reserve and 24 joules. The GMT function in this watch is not a true GMT. It's not a traveller GMT with the jumping hour hand. It's what's referred to as a caller GMT. But as I say, I won't be using the GMT function anyway. But it's worth knowing. Looking at the case back, it's a display case back. There is a small engraving with Seiko 5 on the rotor, and Seiko printed on the hardlex crystal. This is actually the first watch I've ever bought with a hardlex crystal. All my others have sapphire crystals. So I'll be really interested to see how this the crystal and the bezel insert stand up to wear and tear, and I'll be sure to mention that in a future review. The accuracy on this watch so far is perfectly reasonable. It's just about 9 seconds fast per day. I'm hoping that might settle down, but again, I'll let you know in a future review how that works. So to summarise, so far I'm really impressed with this watch. I think it's remarkable value for money. I think it looks absolutely wonderful. Love the GMT hand, although it is just purely aesthetics for me. It doesn't serve much of a purpose, but overall I think it's a fantastic watch for the money. Well, that's it from me. I hope you'll comment or like or even subscribe for this new channel to help me keep going. Thanks in advance for your support, and I'll see you next time.